How often do you feel stiff and limited in your movements? You ever wonder if you just got genetically unlucky or if there's really more to your physical potential? Well, there is, and it's about time for you to unlock that potential and break free from the constraints of modern living to reclaim your body's natural ability to move gracefully. Welcome back, I'm Ferro, and in this video, we're gonna go over what mobility training is, why it matters, and how you can start using it to transform your functional ability. Mobility training was done for thousands of years by various martial arts masters, and even our ancestors naturally had increased mobility due to their active lifestyles. The focus was always to increase the body's access to greater useful range of motion. Not just to be flexible, but to be strong. In our modern workout programs, mobility is often sidelined. The focus is now almost strictly on weight loss or muscle building. But these two things alone will not build functional humans. So what are some benefits of mobility training? Well, sports are a great example of needing the ability to move in sometimes extreme ranges. And mobility training will not only increase your access to those ranges, but also increase your efficiency within those ranges. If you're not an athlete, this training can slowly reverse out the effects of a sedentary lifestyle. Muscle weakness or tightness can occur from either being sedentary or only training muscles along normal movement planes when strength training. Working on mobility seeks to restore that for either performance, injury prevention, or longevity. Anybody will benefit from this, as being able to get into these typically considered awkward positions safely means that if you were to fall into an awkward position, you would be totally okay. Some examples of this could be bad foot placement during a sport leading you to slip and land awkwardly, bending down to pick something up and not being able to get that low with strength and efficiency, or working on something for a long period of time while bending over or squatted down. So how can you get started with mobility training? Well, step one is always going to be to warm up. Our entire bodies work better when warmed up because it increases our blood flow. Having that increased blood flow will lubricate the whole body to prevent injury when we start to do these more dynamic movements. And that's the next thing. You want to keep it dynamic and moving around, not necessarily quickly, but constantly. Learn to begin incorporating movements that'll lengthen and strengthen the muscle at the same time. Typically, these are going to look like eccentric movements where you focus on going down the negative portion of the exercise slowly. To increase joint mobility, we want to put stress on our connective tissues. Moderate stress, of course, as we want to prevent injury, but consistent moderate stress will increase synovial fluid to the joint and blood flow to the tendons and ligaments that they don't normally get. So we have to stay moving, or those parts of the body will essentially become cut off and start to wither over time, drastically decreasing our mobility and decreases our chances of being able to get into those ranges of motion comfortably. So remember, this is not just about stretching. In fact, stretching is only a small part of this. The focus is on strength through these ranges. So if you're going to hold anything as a static stretch, make sure to do it after you increase the blood flow through warm-up, and ideally after you've already stressed the muscle and tissue through strength training. That way you'll be more prepared to stretch the muscle and can ease into it, and you'll see that you're usually more flexible right after training as well. A few examples of good exercises to do to increase our mobility while maintaining and really increasing our strength. I'm gonna give a total of 4 lower body exercises here, 2 for beginners and 2 for more advanced athletes, to begin seeing mobility gains in our training. You're gonna wanna incorporate these exercises into your training regimen. The 2 for beginners is we're gonna have the elevated ATG split squat. So in previous videos, I have gone over the ATG split squat, but specifically here, if you're a beginner, you wanna regress by doing it elevated. Now this will still put the necessary active stress on the hip flexor as well as on the quad and knee, but just not as much as if you were doing it on the floor or especially loaded. So to do this, you can just find a chair or a bench, whatever it is, lift your foot up and then lean forward as far as possible until there's complete closure of your leg. So your knee is fully flexed, and then step the back leg out as far as possible on the toes so you feel the stretch in the hip flexor as well. Then lift yourself back up and back down slowly. Focus on the eccentric, which is the movement that is lengthening the quad muscle and the hip flexor muscle at the same time. This exercise is focused on the anterior chain, which is your front side. The other beginner exercise we have is the Romanian deadlift with a slight knee bend, and this is going to focus on mobility of the posterior chain, or the backside. So here, if you're starting off, you can do it without weight or light weight. I also detailed this in another video, so you can go check that out here after. But to do this, you're gonna slightly bend your knees and then hinge only at the hips, keeping your back straight. You're going to move down slowly, which is going to place a lengthening stress on your hamstrings, glutes, and lower back. Then you're going to move back up through the concentric slowly, and over time, repeating this is going to increase your ability to get into these lengthened ranges more efficiently due to the strengthening nature of these exercises. And we have two more advanced exercises for those who are really looking to step up your athleticism. First, we have the reverse Nordic. The reason this is more strenuous than the ATG split squat is because it has two joints at full extension, both the hips and the knees. And that's important when doing this, because if there's limitations in either of those joints, this is going to be extremely difficult, and I honestly wouldn't even recommend doing it, as you could get hurt. Start with the ATG split squat, and once you get comfortable there and have increased the mobility of your hips and knees, then you can move into this one. I've also talked about the reverse Nordic in a previous video you can check out here after, but I'll quickly go over it right now. You're gonna lay flat on a pad in the seiza position, and you're going to widen your knees and ankles and hinge at the knee only, not at the hips. So keep your hips and your back straight as you move backwards slowly. Remember, focusing on the eccentric, the lengthening portion of the exercise. Touch your back to the ground and then move back up again slowly. This is the advanced exercise we have for the anterior chain, and for the posterior chain, it's gonna look similar to the RDLs, but it's going to actually increase the mobility of the spine as well. The Jefferson curl is gonna look a lot like the Romanian deadlift that we just talked about, but the difference is going to be that as you move down and back up, it's going to be in spinal flexion. So this will put a lot of stress on the spine, and if you haven't developed the necessary muscles to do this, it could lead to injury very quickly. You definitely need to be cautious when performing this one. That's why it's more of an advanced exercise. Do not use weight if you've never done this. Instead, for you, it'll look a lot like just a typical hamstring stretch from a standing position, but you're gonna be moving while doing it. We don't wanna just hold at the bottom position, we wanna move down and back up. Remember, focusing on the eccentric that's going to lengthen the hamstrings, the glutes, and the lower back, and then move back up slowly as well. Eventually you can load this, but until you've done this plenty of times and feel really comfortable in these positions, I wouldn't, as it can be dangerous. And just as the reverse Nordics focus on the anterior chain, this is going to focus on the posterior chain and will increase the strength and mobility of your backside. Now we have two exercises to increase the mobility of your upper body. So first, you're gonna wanna find a bar that you can hang on, and you're gonna grab there, and if all you can do is hang, then that's fine. Just hang for as long as you can to at least get a little bit of stress on the connective tissue, so you can increase your shoulder mobility and get stronger in these positions. But ideally, we wanna be able to at least begin a pull-up, a proper pull-up. So while you're hanging here, you're gonna work on the external rotation of your shoulders and the retraction of your scapula. So it's gonna look like this while you're hanging on the bar. Rotate the shoulders out and bring the scapula down, and you're gonna notice that the bar actually moves in front of you. You actually move behind the bar slightly and change your angle relative to it, so the bar doesn't feel like it's right on top of you anymore, but slightly in front of you, almost getting into a row position. That's the idea. And do this for reps, and I can almost guarantee you'll be sore the next day, as this uses some smaller stability muscles that you probably haven't used very often. But over time, this will definitely increase your shoulder mobility, as it trains these smaller muscles while putting stress on the connective tissue and getting blood flow to areas that don't always get it. And then final exercise for the upper body, we just have depth push-ups. To do this, you can get a couple stacks of books, or you can do it on bars if you have access to it. Eventually, we would want to do this with dips, but to start off, we can do knee push-ups or regular push-ups. And it's gonna look very similar to a normal push-up, but instead of stopping at your chest, you're gonna keep going until your shoulder blades pretty much touch. Again, focusing on the eccentric, so moving down slowly into this position, you'll probably feel the stretch on the shoulders, the deltoids, and the chest as you move down in here, especially if you've never done it before, because it's a big stretch with active tension on your shoulders. And then you're gonna move back up slowly. Now, if you feel comfortable in this lowered, stretched out position, then feel free to move back up through the concentric explosively to increase the power of these muscles and the ability for the tendons to contract even more quickly. Doing that is great for sports performance as it'll increase your throwing strength when throwing a ball or even throwing a punch. So those are just a few exercises that you can add to your training to begin working on mobility and prevent the tightening up of muscles so that you can perform well in your sport, increase longevity, and prevent injuries in the future. And now that you have all that you need to begin training mobility, you can check out this video next to test your knee ability and begin bulletproofing them while working on your mobility at the same time. I'll see you over there. Go be human.